It's September 30th as I'm filming this video, and for those of you who've been following this channel over the past couple of months, specifically any of my work on here music related, you would know that I've been pretty excited for this date. It's been on my calendar for a while, although with today, at least from the original condition of what I presumed would be happening, there's been some changes. You know, with time, obstacles come along the scene. And what I originally believed was going to be a dual release party, two different artists, favorites of mine, releasing new work on the same day. That's changed a bit. Demon Hunter, longtime fan, big in the Christian metal scene if you're not familiar. Their 11th album, Exiles, was also supposed to arrive today. That's been delayed till October 28th, I believe. That fanfare's a bit postponed. But we still have at least some consistency with where I was predicting originally, and that, as far as I'm aware, there's been no production delays. I mean, all the tracks for The Reckoning debuted on my phone, so I'm assuming, everything's fine. But anyway, The Reckoning, the newest 5th album from Icon for Hire, has debuted in full, and I've really been enjoying this release. I've covered all the previous singles, all 4, but I've been a fan of Icon for Hire for a long time, so I've pretty much known the entire way of this journey. But this is going to be a solid release all around, and I've been really looking forward to hearing more from their work today. Although I don't tend to cover full albums typically, I did make an exception with this release because I had some fun. Occasionally I have done it for certain bands, just when I've had time in my schedule, or when I've really been invested of covering a particular group. And Icon for Hire, I've stated previously for a long time, music coverage has not been a mainstay on this channel really for as long as other facets of the entertainment industry have been, but it's an art form that I've always wanted to bring on just because of how much music means to me as a favorite expression. This band in particular, I've been a fan since the Scripted days, so all the way back to 2010-ish, somewhere around there. I think 2011, 2012, I don't know, I get mixed up on dates. But I've been wanting to cover them for a long time. Icon for Hire, big favorite of mine, very talented artist, and I do have an appreciation for artists that succeed within the independent market, and Icon for Hire has done just that wildly on their 5th album at this point, only a year after Amorphous, which I still find really funny. You don't tend to see this quick of a turnaround, but I'm all for it. So I figured with this, again, because I've been a longtime fan, let's make an exception to what I usually do. Maybe I'll just cover the singles or a selection of tracks, and I'm going to give Icon for Hire the full realm of coverage for what I can on this album, because I've really been enjoying The Reckoning. It's been such a strong release, and I want to hear the rest of the work, but I also want to share that experience with you all first. And those who've been following, and maybe you're members of the Icon Army, or that's what we call ourselves, or perhaps this is a new band for you. If so, I hope that this song introduces you to a very talented group. Again, longtime favorite. I can't say that enough. So I'm going to go ahead and cue up the 7th. Again, I've been covering all the singles, so previously I've done coverage for, trying to think of all the names here, Breakdown, Ready for Combat, Dismantled, and Shadows. With exception to the interludes, because those are particularly short, there's kind of little clips. There's about 6 more songs that I'm covering, and those will each be in their own video. First up, and I'm going in order here of the album's track list, is Emo Dreams. We're going to start there. This is track number 7, I believe, on the album. Yes, so following Shadow. I'm going to go ahead and cue this up. We can listen to it together for the first time, and as per usual with my music-related coverage, I do try my best to accommodate the desires of listeners, so I will have the lyrics superimposed into the video as well if you choose to read along with the message of the piece. Of course, I'm sure we'll talk about it more after, as well as the tune itself, but I try to provide every convenience that I can, so those lyrics will be available for you should you like to read along with the song and the message of the piece. But it sounds interesting. Emo Dreams is an interesting name. Sounds pretty personal. Let's see. Let's see where the track goes. Okay, it's softer.
Wish I would have gotten here sooner. I guess you could call me late bloomer.
There's been a rock mainstay in this album, but Icon for Hire has played with many genres very well, hip-hop included.
A custom catastrophe, that's what they call me. None of that mainstream thing does nothing for me. Now that I'm hitting my groove since 2011, been making a move. Don't forget all the years.
These are crafty lyrics. Very strong writing. Ariel, definitely speaks to her talents.
They say, do you wanna be sick or
I like the tone here of this chorus.
And they tell me pick a lane, but I don't say what you want. Wake up in new cities every night.
There's the rock line. Again, mixture. Beautiful blend. Seamless.
And they tell me pick a lane, but I don't say what you want. EMO dream until the day I die. Knew I would do something big from the start. First had to turn all my pain into art.
Good name drop. Yep, subtle advertising. Read the book. I haven't yet, but that was her novel, so I don't know. I need to go read it. That's beautifully paced.
Part of the process was falling in love with the person you were before everyone loved you. Then you realize the point of your dreams is becoming the person that you're supposed to be. And then it's all clear, take it from me, when they say
I relate a lot to Ariel. This is how I feel half the time. I just don't always know how to articulate it. She does it beautifully.
And they tell me pick a lane, but I don't say what you want. Wake up in new cities every night. Do you wanna be sick like a superstar? It's a lonely road being who you are.
This is a really perfect chorus for this. Love it.
I'm the one living my life. I'm the one sleeping at night. Head is the pillow, got no regrets. Wait till you see all the dreams in my head. Do you wanna be sick like a
Same minds here. It's perfect. This is exactly where I'm at. Although, do I often now call myself emo? I just always consider myself an individualist. Emo's always come across me like a very specific name, so I'm not sure. I'd have to look more into a concrete definition of the term. That's good. Flowing off of Shadow, that keeps that, or maintains, I should say, for the album, that ominous tone. It sounds like a much more tragic song, but it's beautiful, though. And again, like I've said, if you're not familiar with Icon for Hire, and this is maybe a first listen for you, that's a good testament to their work, I think, overall in the history of their releases. So far, The Reckoning, and this has been brought to my attention as well from other fans in my comment sections and the coverage I provided originally for the singles, this album, and I can attest to this as much, having covered those releases, The Reckoning thus far has maintained a real rock emphasis, which is where Icon for Hire started. Even though, again, from the beginning, it was more so, I think, on their second self-titled album release. It was it was less there with Scripted. Scripted was much more rock-based. The Icon for Hire album, though, so again, their second debut, that had a good mixture of tracks in there that came across a little more pop-centered with a hip-hop rap construction. More hip-hop. I'd say like Nerves, pop culture. Even though there's that rock root with that album as well, and that's always been consistent with them, Icon for Hire plays with genres very well. This, I think, is a beautiful demonstration of that. I mean, not only, of course, you've got the talented lyrics. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'll keep everything organized here. The sound of it, much softer compared to previous tracks. Like, there's been, and actually, come to think of it, every single release thus far has a pretty harsh opener, and harsh in the sense of it, just the aggressiveness, and it maintains that all the way through the song. And again, harsh music, I'm a big metalhead, so that appeals to me. Much less hip-hop, although I make special exception for Icon for Hire, not only based on their talent, but the beauty of their pieces and the message. This is much softer in comparison to how it's introduced itself. And of course, then you've got the rap bass that comes into the second verse, and then the chorus, at least on the interlude of it, draws back to that softer ballad approach with that, that beat and that real tragic sound. It really worked for me. And then on the second part, you can hear about as well that it gets more into that rock line. That, I think, again, it's a really good piece, I think, if you're a newbie listener to understand just how effective they are at mixing genres up. It's really organized well. I mean, there's a clear structure to the piece. So each part of the song feels unified in its relatable section to the previous verses and how they're organized as well. I think it's a good mapping, but it demonstrates, again, I think, the mixture of genres and what Icon for Hire can do as a band and their reach with their art. On the music side, the message itself I find really interesting. It's a very deep piece and one that definitely relates to me quite a bit. I'll get into that maybe in a second, but emo. I've always thought of it as like a term of, maybe this is based... Hang on, I'm going to pull up the official definition of emo. I've never looked up the term specifically. I've always considered it as sort of related to like a fashion style or punk related, just based on who I know and who I've been in the company of. I'm wondering as I read this piece, this is kind of what I was thinking going through and why I mentioned it, I'm looking at myself and how I relate to the song, and I'm wondering if perhaps I can relate to the emo term, but that it's interchangeable with individuality. Or at least my individual tastes. I mean, I don't know, let me see. Okay, official definition according to Bing. A style of rock music. Okay, so it's more music-centric, maybe not as much... Well, you could probably still describe fashion to some extent as of emo line, resembling punk but having more complex arrangements and lyrics that deal with more emotional subjects. Okay, that perfectly describes Icon for Hire then. So they're more like an emo punk rock band with, you know, hip-hop and rap tunes if they so wish. That definitely, I would say, then fits the term of the song. That's actually a really good name, Emo Dreams. That's sort of been their style. It's the dreams of the band and Ariel and Sean more specifically. This is, I would say, a piece of them divulging their heart with the audience, and especially their fans. I perfectly relate to this. I mean, I'm not a musician, but, you know, I'm a music connoisseur. But Icon for Hire has always resonated with me as a band, again, ever since I started. Music for me has, just as an art form, what it's done for me personally in my life. Not just, you know, in its beauty of an expressive form, but as an agent of catharsis and healing. Especially when it relates to Icon for Hire. They've made so many tracks over the years of their albums that have just stuck with me and have guided me, molded me, and really helped me through many situations that I've been through, complex ones. This is a type of song that really resonates with me from their library of work, because it just embodies the soul of the artist. It's so strong. I mean, this definitely, I would say, also documents... There's two ways that this is good. Of course, it's beautiful as an appeal to the listener, as a healing aid, but it also is like it's a great biographical piece, in a way. I mean, the way this is mapped out, like on the first verse... so many puns, by the way. Guess you could call me late bloomer. Ha ha. Custom catastrophe. That's a good term. I might use that. Since 2011, been making a move. If you're not familiar with Icon for Hire, that's one of... I think that was actually their probably most well-known track. It certainly is on their music video. That music video, when Scripted debuted, you know, I kind of used it as a boasting point. I remember when it hit number 2 on the iTunes charts. Like, they got attention pretty quickly when they came on the scene. That's really funny. A lot of puns in here, but... It kind of demonstrates that linear track of their career from Ariel and Sean's perception. So this is based on, you know, both the artist's account. But I definitely hear Ariel's heart for this, because she's expressed in many interviews of what I've seen their journey as a band. Again, like I've said, independent artists, not just in the music scene, but of course you're not familiar with this channel, I cover a wide variety of art forms as well in the entertainment space. Let's say more stuff in the visual space, in particular cinema and television. The indie market has always resonated with me in particular, and I like big commercial releases, but I like to see when artists have more of a liberty and less constraints in the message that they want to produce. Because oftentimes then you get a more authentic piece of work, rather than something that you watch and you feel like there's budgetary constraints, there's studio demand, or in this case, let's adapt it to music, there's label guidance, maybe some certain constraints with the label, or with the particular categorization of music, maybe the trends in what messages are talked about. When you see an artist go independent, and which is a lot of what artists have been doing, especially in the rock scene in being a Christian, obviously, I'm very familiar with Christian music. The Christian rock scene in particular, there are so many groups that are jumping away from labels. And Icon for Hire has never labeled themselves a Christian band explicitly, as far as I'm understood. I've kind of used the term Christian adjacent to describe them, because they did start with Tooth and Nail, which I believe, at least when they came on, Tooth and Nail is more construed as a Christian label. But they've always had tracks that have in some way stressed a sentimentality to them that can be related to Christian themes, even though they're not explicitly stated as such. But this, like I was saying, this is just a strong documentation as you read the entire journey of the piece. This is a description of where the band has been and where they've, at this point with this track, where they've, reached. They started with Tooth and Nail. They went through about 2 albums with them. Then they left. I mean, there's a whole, story behind that. And then they went independent. And the minute they came back on, I've talked about this before, they came back on with scenes like Now You Know and Under the Knife. Those particular examples I've always cited. It was such a different boldness from them. And, Icon for Hire has always had an edge ever since they started, but you could clearly tell, like, at this point, these are the artists that we want to be. These are the messages that we want to talk about without constraint, without a limitation. We're free to express ourselves in the way that we feel best appeals to people in the state of life that, they or the artists themselves might be in. It was just such a different resonance. It was a very powerful jump back, I will say, especially with Now You Know. I mean, when that song came out, it just hit hard with its potency. And ever since, with You Can't Kill Us, Amorphous, and now The Reckoning, that's been maintained all the way through. So it's interesting, again, to hear all these years later, in retrospect, a song that documents that journey so well. And it's beautifully written. And personally, as I listen to this, I do see myself quite a bit in parallel to where Ariel is, as somebody who is, again, hyper-individualist. I have, called myself in the past, I've considered myself, maybe it's not the right term to use, actually, I kind of prefer it. I've called myself an anomaly. I just don't relate as well with, I don't say this in any way to be begrudging to people that I know. I just don't relate the best to people around me in the way that I think about the world, in the way that I understand my own life, my ambitions, even my execution of art, what I've wanted. I see a distinction that in many ways alienates me. And there are times, I think about where I'm like, it's the same sentimentality I've expressed, what's in the song here. Do you want to be sick like a superstar? It's a lonelier road being who you are. Ain't that true? I'm not in it for the fame. I'm in it just to be me, right? And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. I mean, maybe it depends on what the specifics of a situation, but when you're talking about self-expression, you feel like a contrast. But in many ways, you might be, like if it's along these lines, you're the better for it. So you might feel distinct, indifferent, the anomaly of the group, but your path might not necessarily be a bad one. Especially if you're realizing through, if you're growing in that, if you're building strength of character or understanding of self, it does matter. There's a lot that I could say to this. Again, it perfectly resonates with me and my mindset of where I come from on this channel and the work that I produce. Ariel and I are of a one-track mind, it seems. And Sean, too. But it's really interesting. I mean, I think this is why, a song like this is why people resonate so well with Icon for Hire. I mean, it's why I have over the many years. And again, post their Tooth and Nail departure, you've really seen them grow as artists. This song is a beautiful documentation of that. It just perfectly articulates their progress. And it's admirable. And again, I think that's why they resonate so well with fans, is fans can acknowledge that progress. They see it. It's quite overt. It's a beautiful journey that they've been on, and I've had a great time with them. And that track really, it resonates. It encapsulates all my feelings, all the joy that I've seen in them succeed, and how that success from them has influenced me as well. in my own life and my own work. It's a track that sticks with you. Emo Dreams, pretty big listen. Pretty significant. I will keep that in consideration as I make my way through the next 5 tracks. Again, I'm going to cover the rest of the album in the entirety, but they're all going to be in separate videos. So Gatekeepers is next, followed by the 4 other pieces I have not covered yet besides the singles. It's a strong song nonetheless. I will definitely give it more listens, I'm sure. For those of you who have been longtime Icon for Hire fans, maybe you followed this channel in regard to this band, maybe that's how you were first introduced. What do you think of this track? Where do you think it lines up for you in the path of the reckoning? And do the lyrics, resonate with you? And for those of you who perhaps might be fresh listens, does this track compel you to maybe want to give Icon for Hire a deeper look? I would highly recommend it. Let me know what angle you come from down below. I would love to hear about your entrance with this band. Strong song. I will definitely keep covering the rest of the reckoning. So again, if you want to listen to the rest of the album with me, I will have those tracks coming out subsequently. But Emo Dreams, it's going to stick with me, I think. It's a very strong song. I can't wait to hear the rest, but this is like every single released thus far for the album, this song clicks. Jives. It's good. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.